And welcome back into another episode of the Ball Boys podcast. Wow, week 2 of the NFL definitely better than week 1. Some overtime games, some scoring. Sadly, a couple injuries. Prayers up to Nick Chubb, of course. Who you don't want to speculate. We're not doctors, but if you saw the video, it looks like season could be over. Saquon Barkley ankle sprain. He should be a little bit better, but probably 3 or 4 weeks there. So prayers up to those guys. Sport like this, injuries happen. It sucks. We progress forward to the business of the best bets. And Nolan, I don't mean to be that guy, but I tried to save you. I tried to save you from yourself. So for those of you who missed the last episode, we do 3 bets at the end of our preview episodes, and we're keeping a tally for the end of the year. Right now, I have progressed to 4-2. My bets were Bills minus 8.5 and Packers plus 1.5. I lost on the Giants minus 4. Really wanted that 3-0 week, but didn't happen. Nolan bet on the Saints minus 3. That cashed. Bet on the Jaguars plus 3.5. Didn't cash. And Nolan joined me on the Packers side, except Nolan took it that step further and wanted to go Packers money line. And I said, are you sure? The line, you plus 1.5, you don't need to go that far. No, I'm going that far. So Nolan moves to 2-4 in the year. I moved to 4-2, still early in the season, of course. But Nolan, does it hurt a little bit to get stung by the 1-point loss?
Vegas sent it out call, bro. Vegas was on the line, and they were like, "Yo, we watched the Ball Boys podcast, and you want to make Nolan look like a fool."
Vegas
and
seemed like they were on the line a couple times this weekend with the Rams.
That Rams game too. But no, I was watching the Falcons game, and I'm like, yeah, they're up 9 points or whatever, and heading into the fourth quarter, and next thing I know, they're losing. I'm like,
I wonder how many Packers fans like you said 1.5. That'll never hit. Just give me the money line for the plus money, and they got them. Vegas got them. But we got to move forward here, and I'll tell you what. This team right here, Miami Dolphins on Sunday Night Football, get the win over the Patriots, 24-17. Controversial. Did he get the first down? Did he not get the first down? In reality, with the technology, I don't think Cole Strange got the first down. However, I am a proponent of he probably should have just let him have it. I mean, it's a lateral to an offensive lineman, and he was like this far off. Hey, come on, just say there's not enough conclusive evidence. Nobody would be mad at you.
That was wild.
But the Dolphins moved to 2-0. Tua Tagovailoa, 5-0 in his career against Bill Belichick. My question is, are the Dolphins legit Super Bowl contenders?
All right, so here's what I'll say. I don't know if they're Super Bowl contenders. They are playing very well. However, they did the same thing last year. I want to see how they play against better opponents.
Mm-hmm.
And on Sunday night, they played against a good defense, and you saw like they were struggling a little bit, but the Pats offense isn't that great. So I want to see how they play against a superior opponent, and then I could really base that question off.
Maybe
of that.
There is no superior opponent.
True. I mean, I'm really excited for the Bills game. I think it's coming up soon. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Let me pull up the Dolphins schedule. I know that they do play the Chiefs in like week 7 in Germany.
In Germany,
they have Broncos next week. We'll talk about the Broncos later, and then they're at Buffalo in week 4. So. Yes. That'll be a certain matchup. And then they travel to Philly week 7. That's the one I was thinking of. So
we know how that's going to end up. But
I'm just, so there's some real tests in these games.
But I will say, I mean, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but, there's a lot of teams that people thought that were going to be great, and, they're not doing too hot. Yeah. So, I mean, the AFC maybe isn't as strong as we once thought it was. So they may have a better shot of, taking that big leap.
Yeah, I feel like they are in a very strong position to win the AFC East. With Rodgers' injury, we saw with Zach Wilson. And listen, the Cowboys' defense might be the best in the NFL. So I'm not going to grade Zach Wilson off of that because, to be quite frank, he did better than Daniel Jones did. So, yeah, we'll see where Zach Wilson stacks up against New England this upcoming week, but again, another really tough. We talked about it though. This Jets opening schedule is rough. We were debating if Aaron Rodgers was going to be above 500. It, I don't know if it's fair to dog on Zach Wilson if he's not above 500 when we weren't sure if a four-time MVP was going to be. But moving back to the Dolphins here, they just have so many weapons, man. Tyreek Hill has a quiet game, but then on third down, every time they needed a big play, it seemed like Jalen Waddle was there to make a great catch. And coming from an Eagles fan, that's the best wide receiver duo in football. The Eagles are in second, but Tyreek Hill is in a class or two above AJ Brown, whereas I think Smitty and Waddle are more comparable. Tua, when he's healthy, he wins. It's very similar to Lamar. Not the play style, but when he's out there, man, that team succeeds. That team wins. They were 8-3 last year with Tua starting. I mean, that's we're talking about 1 seed numbers there. You have the Chiefs who suffered a loss early, the Bills who suffered a loss early, the Bengals now 0-2, the Jets without their quarterback for the rest of the season. The Bills are 1-1. There's a door opening up for the Miami Dolphins, and I think they could be a Super Bowl team. Shout out the 8 Ball. Listen, man, when I had him, I did an interview on him before you became the co-host here, and we talked about Super Bowl futures. And this man had Cowboys and Dolphins, and I looked at him and said, "Listen, man, I don't see it, but." And we're 2 weeks into the season, and I see it. And maybe it's not too late to hop on the bandwagon, but the Dolphins look good. The Dolphins look good, and this is without Jalen Ramsey. He'll be coming back in December, and I worried if they were going to be in a spot where it even mattered if he came back. I think it's safe to say that they'll be in a spot where it matters as long as Tua is kept upright. But another team that's off to a 2-0 start, the Baltimore Ravens, a team that Nolan has near and dear to his heart, his middle school classmate, Lamar Jackson, leading the Ravens to a 2-0 record now. They look legit, too. And people were worried about the offense after the Texans' performance, and I pumped the brakes on it personally and said, hey, a team facing a lot of injuries kind of just does what they can to get out of that game. It's Houston. They kind of had it locked up. I'm not too worried about it. Let's see what happens versus Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is in a world of trouble. I think that Joe Burrow injury is serious. I don't think he plays Monday. I think they lose to the Rams on Monday when he doesn't play. And I don't know when he comes back. If you remember, prior to the season, Jamar Chase said, you should sit out to the bye. Maybe Jamar was right. But that doesn't take away from what this Ravens team is. 2-0, Lamar's looked good. Zay Flowers has looked like the best rookie wide receiver in the class thus far, which, Ravens fans, and I was worried for Ravens fans that they drafted the wrong guy because they were looking for speed and looking for another Hollywood Brown, but he looks good. Rashad Bateman had a good day. Mark Andrews back. The Gus Bus, did what he could. And that defense is legit, man. I mean, how do you feel about the Ravens right now? How confident are you in them?
Hey, man, I said from day one, I think this is the Ravens' year. And based off how the AFC is looking, I mean, I think they got the squad, and I think the big reason I was thinking that was because their offense is legit this year. I know they still have problems in the defense, but this is easily the best amount of weapons that Lamar has had since he started in the league. And you mentioned Zay Flowers; he's been looking like mini AB out there. We got Mark Andrews; he's back. Odell got hurt, but I wasn't expecting big things from him. And
injuries kind of baked in him, but on that team, you still have Duvernay, you still have Aguilar, who came with a touchdown.
Yeah, Aguilar
those are fine guys for wide receiver threes to be swapped in, especially when, in terms of passing, they'll be the fourth option when you include Andrews.
Yeah. So I mean, their defense, that's still a question mark. I know the Bengals. We'll see how good they are, because it's hard to tell how good they are. So their defense, the Ravens defense, I don't know if they played well or the Bengals were that bad. So we'll see with that. But yeah, they look really good, And
Patrick Queen is all over the field.
Oh yeah, he looks great. And then the Bengals side, bro, like I don't know. I mean, I thought they would come, I think, in second place in the AFC North, but that injury, I knew it would linger, but it's already week 2 and this is
It's
happening.
bad. He shouldn't have
It's not looking
played.
good.
He
No
should
shot.
not have played a game. Um, you know, I get it. There were big divisional games at the beginning of the season, but if that's the level he was at, he shouldn't have played a game. Because you could see it in his throws. Joe Burrow's just not getting the same power because he can't plant down. And a lot of underthrown balls. Obviously T. Higgins has the big day, which is cool for fantasy purposes, but overall, Baltimore, the final score was closer than it felt. It looked like Baltimore kind of had control of the game throughout. And like you said, I'm not too worried about the OBJ injury. It also came out that it's not that serious. Um, but, OBJ at his age with his injuries, nobody expected him to play a full 17. um, but he looks good when he's out there. Still got glue for hands. So, good for the Ravens there. Your Super Bowl pick of Ravens Eagles looking a hell of a lot better than my Super Bowl pick of Bengals Eagles. I'll tell you that. But we want to move on to some teams that aren't doing so hot, and there's a lot of 0-2 teams out there, like the Bengals, like the Chargers, like the Vikings, who are maybe done. And when you're 0-2, I believe you have about an 8% chance to make the playoffs. So while 0-2 may not seem like a big deal, it kind of turns out statistically it is. So we want to talk about which 0-2 team is cooked. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. I was on this on last episode after we did the Thursday Night Football recap, but I'm going to be on it again. This Vikings team last year 11-0 in one-score games. This year 0-2 already. The pendulum swings. Everything returns to the mean, and the Vikings are returning to the mean. They have absolutely no run game because their offensive line isn't good, and they got rid of and didn't pay their dynamic running back. So in the NFL, a lot of times people say, oh, you don't need to pay the running back, dime a dozen, etc. And if you have an offensive line like the Eagles in that same game, you can throw out Boston Scott, DeAndre Swift, Kenny Gainwell, whoever you want, and they can pick up 5-6 yards of carry behind a good offensive line. But when you're the Vikings and didn't pay an offensive line, you need a dynamic running back there like Dalvin Cook who can make people miss to pick up those 4 or 5 yards of carry. Alexander Madison is not that. Alexander Madison, I believe he's averaging 2 or 3 yards a carry. Either way, an abysmal number. And this offense, I believe, as a whole, is still under 100 rushing yards. As a whole, not just Madison, but multitude of running backs can't reach that height. And what it allows the defense to do is drop back into coverage. You don't need to rush as many if you have a good D line. The offense, they put up points late in Philly, and I had people telling me, oh, Kirk Cousins had a good game, blah, blah, blah. They're empty calorie stats. The Eagles, similar to what we just said about the Ravens, it felt like they were in control of that game the entire second half. And Kirk Cousins has a drive at the end of that game. There's a broken coverage Jordan Addison touchdown. But aside from that, that offense wasn't moving and proving anything special. And the defense is probably the worst part of the team. They're going to get cooked every week. A battle of two 0-2 teams this upcoming week, Chargers and Vikings. Give me the Chargers. The Chargers put up points in both of their games. I think the Vikings are done. I don't think the Vikings are going to make the playoffs. And I don't think Kirk Cousins is the quarterback of this team next year. It's a loaded quarterback class. You have Shador, you have Caleb, you have May, you have the guy out of Washington. There's a lot of good QB prospects. Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins' time in Minnesota is up. And, I don't know if he makes it through the season. I think we get to week 6, week 7, and Zach Wilson has the Jets at 1-5 or 2-4. Might be time to call up Kirk.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna give Minnesota one more week. I think this is whoever wins this week between the Chargers and Vikings will give them a little bit of life, and the losers just toast. So I'm excited. That's a huge game. It's already week 3, and that's probably a must win for both teams. So excited for that one. So I'm gonna pull an audible. I originally had the Broncos, and they look horrible. They look horrible. Russell Wilson looks like he's trying to be Kyler Murray out there. That O-line, he's running around like
Russ
his head's
isn't
cut
good.
off.
Russ isn't good.
He's cooked. He is
Russ is
officially
cooked.
cooked.
Are the Broncos cooked? Maybe if they bench Russ or go trade him.
Yeah, and I think Sean Payton was like, he's got one more year, else he's out, and he's probably out. So
Yeah.
them losing that lead against the Commanders was atrocious, and even
Two
though
home
that finish was
two home
wild,
games to start the year against the Raiders and the Commanders, and
yeah,
you're
you
0-2.
can't beat either of those teams. You're done. But so the team that I think is cooked is the Chicago Bears. So for me, we were both really low, or not really low, but a lot lower than people were on the Bears this season. And I was saying Justin Fields, he's not it. And if you watch the game Sunday, he was making throws that like I have no idea. He was throwing like 90-mile-per-hour fastballs at like people's feet, and he was in the pocket for too long. He was just running around like it was ridiculous out there. And they got blown out against the Packers, a divisional opponent, week 1. Week 2, we'll see how this Bucks team is against the Eagles Monday. But I don't think they're that great. So to be 0-2 after this really hot off season it's not looking good, and a lot of people are already asking the question: is the front office looking forward to move on with this huge QB class coming up next year? So if you're a
They
Bears
should.
fan, it's not looking good, man. It's always bad out there, but there was some hope, but it's gone now.
Yeah, nothing like a Nolan victory lap around Ohio State quarterbacks. Nothing like it.
Yeah, CJ Stroud looks a little bit good. We'll see how that pans out, but he did play the Colts, so
Yeah, I
let's
like
pump the
CJ
brakes.
Stroud better than Justin
Yeah, he
Fields.
definitely has more talent than
I
Fields for
just
sure. I just don't know how he's going to be.
I think Fields was a product of that system. I think Fields is a crazy dynamic athletic player. He reminds me of Terrell Pryor. I maybe switch over to wide receiver. I don't know.
Hey, he's got
I
the
mean,
wheels.
that's what Terrell did, and he had an all right stretch there. But I digress. The Bears are cooked, and Shador Sanders will be their quarterback next season. Book it. Surprise team. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Surprise.
While there's some bad teams while there's some bad teams that we thought were going to be good, there's some good teams that we thought were going to be bad. And I was on this team being bad almost all off season. And then about a week into the regular season, I looked at the roster again and said, this team is going to be this year's Seahawks, aren't they? And that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm proud of myself, pat myself on the back a little bit, because they're 2-0. And not only are they like 2-0, but they look pretty good, actually. Baker Mayfield playing some of the best football of his career, which isn't saying too much, but we all kind of thought this was Baker's last shot. And I even think Tampa thought, we'll bring in Baker. It's his last shot. We don't expect much, and then we'll draft one of these quarterbacks. But Baker might have them in a spot where they're in the playoffs. The NFC South has 3 2-0 teams right now with the Bucks, the Saints, and the Falcons. But for my money, through 2 weeks, the Buccaneers look like the best team of the bunch. Mike Evans is having a fantastic year with Baker Mayfield to start. People speculated, is Mike Evans 1,000-yard every year stretch done? Unless he gets hurt. No. Is the defined answer to that. Chris Godwin bounced back this week, had a good week. Rashid White against that Bears defense has a good week. Rashid White, I think he'll be fine and serviceable against bad defenses, but against the better defenses may struggle. The O-line looks good. The defense, they're out there making plays. The competition hasn't been the greatest. We just mentioned how bad the Bears are, but the Buccaneers are my surprise team, although I'm not surprised. But I think everybody else is surprised because I think a lot of people had them in the top tier of draft picks. But I'm excited for this Buccaneers team, and they play our Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night. And while I'm by no means rooting against the Eagles, I do think that the Buccaneers passing game is going to move the ball. Mac Jones threw for 300 plus on the Eagles. Then Kirk Cousins did. Now Avonte Maddox is hurt. Bradbury should be back, but the safety problems are there. I don't know who's guarding Mike Evans and Chris Godwin all night. I think there's definitely a shot that there's more broken coverage with those two wide receivers, and a big play happens. Yeah, so far that's been the Eagles' weakness. They give a big play to Kendrick Bourne, a big play to Jordan Addison. They give up big plays, but I think it'll be a good barometer. If the Buccaneers on Monday night get absolutely torched by the Eagles, then all right, maybe it was a schedule thing. But I think it'll be a more competitive game than people expect. I'll never bet against the Eagles, but if the line is more than 10, and I'm not an Eagles fan, I'd probably throw it on the Buccaneers spread.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm super shocked about the Bucks this year. I didn't think they would be maybe bottom five, but definitely bottom 10 for sure. And they look pretty decent. Like I just mentioned, they play the Bears, and their D line was tearing it up out there. So Baker's playing great. That Vikings week
And
one
he's
game,
been he's been mobile, Baker.
yeah, no, he looks very accurate. That week one game they came back and won that game on the road, so that's no easy feat to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked pretty good. So, like we mentioned, I'm excited for Monday's game against the Eagles. So we'll see if they're for real. So my surprise team, they are 1-1, but they could have easily been 2-0. Is the LA Rams. So I was expecting them to be not that great this year, especially with the cup injury. Like I thought they'd be toast,
Yeah, me too.
and they just are like a firing cylinder, bro. Like they could put anybody out there, and they're still gonna McVay, bro. I give him a lot of props this year. I'm not the highest on him, but the way he's coaching this year with those new guys, like they look very good. Puka, Tutu, Stafford, Kyron Williams is the new running back now. Like that offense is unrecognizable, and
Someone
they're
said Cam
still
Akers to the Browns.
it's possible, but it's crazy, And they played the Niners this year, who a lot of people after week one were like, "Oh, this team is the best team I've ever seen," and they almost beat the Niners. And this Rams team could make a run if maybe they make a couple of trades, if they keep it up because they look really good, and I'm totally surprised and shocked at how good this team is this year, and I'm excited to see if they can keep it up. I got Puka on my fantasy team, so I got no complaints over there. But uh, I'm very very surprised on how well, especially McVay is putting this team together.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, without Cooper Cup, when he comes back, him and Puka are going to be a problem. Puka's legit. I don't, Puka's got like the most receiving yards through 2 games for any receiver ever. I'm not, Puka's not Jerry Rice, not Randy Moss. I think it's more of a product of the environment that those numbers are coming up. But he is good. And when Cup's back and in that role, Puka will succeed, and then Tutu Atwell will be the third guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he got behind some defenses. Kyron Williams is okay. I think that the Rams could potentially be a sneaky team that's now in on Jonathan Taylor. Is he going
Yeah,
to be traded? We'll see, but I think it's a sneaky possibility that they're a team that goes out and gets him. Um, that offensive line is so drastically improved beyond any measure that I could have expected. And, that's coaching. So shout out to McVay, shout out to all the coaches there. But I just, you saw me looking down there on my phone. I wanted to get the number exact. Only 1 sack given up. And we know Matt Stafford faced a lot of hits, a lot of sacks last year. Listen, if they can keep Stafford upright, and Cup, the reports came out as targeting a Week 5 comeback, this team could be good. Monday night against the Bengals, doesn't look like Joe Burrow is going to play. Definitely a winnable game. You know, I don't know who they play after that. They play the Colts. So it's very possible that when Cooper Cup comes back Week 5 as they host the Eagles, they could be 3-1. And the Rams are a team that some people had in their playoffs. I didn't see it that way, but in the NFC, I'm lower on the Seahawks. The Rams could take the 2 seed in this division, and they could for sure be a wild card team. I still think the 49ers are a tier above them, especially consistency-wise throughout the regular season. But don't be shocked if the Rams make a run into the playoffs. But that's all we got for today's episode. Be sure you tune back in this Friday for our Week 3 preview. Follow along our best bets. I'm not telling you that you have to tail me, but
I'm coming for the 3-0 this week. It's getting ridiculous out here.
Yeah. I mean, the only way for you to pass me is for me to go 0-3 and you to go 3-0. So
an chip early away.
lead.
We're gonna chip away. You know, you got to start with the 3-0
lead. Yeah, got to start with a winning week.
Yes, facts.
But thank you all for joining us. Make sure you give the College Kids a follow on Twitter for all your sports betting needs. Give us a follow to stay up to the date with all your latest NFL news, memes, reports, videos, etc. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that button. A ton of good content. If you love MLB, MMA, etc. Football with us, of course, the number one. But we will catch you guys on Friday. Peace.